All right, got a good crowd today. Welcome, friends. This is Sunday afternoon, uh, August the 24th, Sunday afternoon in Thailand. And yesterday we started talking about a subject that we didn't quite finish because there's a lot to it. And so I would like to do a bit of review today to get everybody um, on, um, let us say, on the right wavelength. Now, what we talked about was scarcity versus abundance, which is just another way of talking about wholesome versus unwholesome. But way back in the really, really old days, let us say, at a time when the tribal uh, system of human existence started to interact with other tribes. And one of the things that people came across was the concept that other tribes and other groups and maybe even other nations have different gods. And that uh, one word that I didn't talk about yesterday, which can be understood, is the word itself, Israel. Now, the word is the first part of it means Isis, which was Egyptian god, and Ra, which is the Egyptian sun god, and El, which is a god that was quite a lot around Mesopotamia, north of Egypt. And there is also another word, Elohim, which kind of means family. Now, in the Greek system, there was what they call the pantheon of gods, that the head god was Zeus, but there were all of these other gods, and they were all kind of in a family. And you can see that example then to use to the example of Elohim, or the chief god was El. Now, one of the things that we know from, let us say, the history of how, um, uh, let us say, Western civilization has been set up uh, is that it comes from a Jewish background because of the Jewish culture, and that the Jews had a different God. His name was Yahweh, or pronounced sometimes Jehoshaphat, and Jehoshaphat was a little god. He was only a kind of a local dude. And as the story goes, they didn't have much land. And so Yahweh was heavily into competition with the other gods. He was especially in competition with one named Baal, and Baal was part of the Elohim group. So we can begin to understand that the Jews, or the Hebrews or Israelis, they had um, a lot of competition about who was the best God. Now that was different than in India. India, everybody was kind of welcome because there were so many different parts of India that had, each one of them had their own god. For instance, oh, the Brahmins had the Brahma god, and there were Shivites and Vishnu, but there was also Kali worship and all kinds of stuff. And so they kind of put these guys together to where in the Mediterranean it was quite confrontational. In fact, whole civilizations were destroyed, land grabs, etc., over the issue of whose God is the best God, or my God. Now, here's an interesting point, that in all of the little tribal gods, the tribe members themselves saw their God as the God, the big one. But when all of the various tribes and cultures clashed, they began to see that their God wasn't quite so big. Now, all throughout history, there has been scarcity. And so, what we're talking about today is that the mindset of all of the people have wound up becoming a mindset of there's not enough, there's scarcity. My God is not big enough. Let's make him bigger by telling great big stories about him. But it always has to do with things are not good enough, not big enough, and we've got to take over and make our God the bigger God. So, a little bit about Jesus. When he spoke Aramaic. Now, Aramaic is a language of, let us say, Eastern Turkey and Syria and that area. Mostly it comes from Mesopotamia. And so he spoke Aramaic, and he referred to his God as Abba, which has been probably wrongly, or let us say, strangely translated into the word Father. But that what Jesus had as a God was something he said that the God is within you. Now remember that Yahweh is not a God within you, he's a burning bush, he's a mountain, he stays in the temple. But Jesus worshiped a different God, or at least talked about a different God, and called it Abba, which we can use the word about, above, around us. He was not necessarily local, because wherever you went, that God was all around you, all about. And also, when Jesus was on the cross, he one point said, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? You probably heard that expression, except that he wasn't calling on Yahweh, he was calling on Eli or El. How many of you knew that? That he did not call on the Jewish God that ran the temple. He had other gods. We call him Jewish, but guess what? He may have not even thought of himself as Jewish in the sense of the Jehovah, and that a lot of the magical stuff that came later about Jesus actually was part of the Roman change of um, religion. That Constantine did this. That the Christian religion was beginning to grow, and there was already a problem with the priest of Mithra. Now, the Mithraism was actually a religion of mostly the army, but there was a lot of army that was beginning to see Jesus. In fact, they have dug up Mithra temples in as far as away as England. Originally, when they were doing the archaeology, they thought these were Christian temples, but they dug up enough stuff to figure out that though these were not Christian temples, these were Mithras. Now, the thing's very interesting that the teachings that the Christians say about Jesus were not, in fact, um, things that we know about Jesus. We know that his father was Joseph, that he was a carpenter, that he was a traveler, etc., like this. But we also know that the Mithras king, or the god, was of a virgin birth. He was killed and resurrected, and that his birthday was December the 25th. And the reason that his birthday was December the 25th is because of the ancient point about the sun on December the 25th is at its lowest point, and they had a celebration when they could see that the sun was coming back. Now, throughout all of Rome and the Roman Empire, they celebrated December the 25th as Mithras' birthday. Surprise, surprise, when Christianity took over, guess what Jesus' birthday was? December the 25th, even though there's good evidence that he was actually born in springtime. So we can say then that what Christianity has become it was a takeover, a political takeover, and a lot of the stuff that we have around Jesus actually was put upon him. And the funny thing about Christianity today is Christianity is much closer to Mithraism than it is to the teachings of Jesus himself. But in fact, you could say at one time I thought that Paul had made huge changes to what Jesus taught. But in fact, I've recently, in study, found out that actually Paul was fairly close to what Jesus taught, including his definition of um, what is the definition of God. And he used that in the sense of creation itself, not a creator God, but creation all around us, above us, everywhere, which fits very closely to what Jesus had as Allah. Also, it's only in the Gospels where Jesus was captured because he broke into the temple and was crucified and resurrected in bodily form. But that's not what Paul taught. Paul taught a resurrection of spirit, and that's closer to what you would call the teachings of the Buddha, that we become resurrected. That in fact, in the teachings of the Buddha, they talk about it in the sense of change of lineage. And lineage is actually quite important. Important in Thailand and all around the Theravada. It's also really important within the Tibetan tradition. And what do we mean by the lineage? Is when we change lineage, we change it to our senior monks, our teachers, our friends in the Dhamma, and that we no longer consider our birth lineage of that much value. And there's many different indications of that. One is the Buddha talks about Aryan. Now, in one sense, Aryan was a race of people, and that Buddha was actually born in the Aryan clan, the Sakyans, but he used the word Aryan not as a birth, but as the resurrection or the new life, being born again into a new lineage. Now, the distinction between the old lineage and the new lineage for each one of us has to do with no longer being in a lineage of scarcity, of being not enough, of being in competition, being in a state of war with those around us. But when we change lineage into the lineage of the Buddha, we actually are now in the lineage of abundance, enough. Everything is complete. We got all that we need. There is uh, no need for competition. There is no need for enemies. But in fact, we can, in fact, go for, we've got friends. And so this is the main change of lineage, going from the birth lineage that we have into the new lineage. Now, it's kind of surprising when people see that that particular teaching of Jesus and that particular teaching of the Buddha are in line with each other, very closely aligned. This gives us the idea that maybe Jesus was not even Hindu like Jewish or worshiped the god of the Mediterranean, but in fact that he was Buddhist. And we have also over history a lot of evidence, including in the time of the Buddha, but also in 200 years after that, during the time of the Sok, we had a lot of movement back and forth between India and the Mediterranean. Further, Greeks had already populated, uh, not just because of Alexander the Great, but before him, there was a great deal of Greek culture in Afghanistan all the way up to the Indus River. And so we have evidence that there were Greek monks in the time of the Buddha, and that this ancient history is not as solid because of distance as we think, but in fact there was a lot of communication. Now, Bhikkhu Buddhadasa himself had the point that uh, Jesus may have not ever heard of the Buddha, but that he did get some training, and that the training that he got could have been influenced by Buddha. There is also in Alexandria, we know that uh, that there was a Therapute group. Now, Theravada means the teaching of the elders, but Therapute is exactly that same thing. It's just in a different language. And the word therapy, then the word that we use in English, actually comes from the Therapute, which were um, medical people. They were philosophers, let us say, very close to the Stoicism of Greece. And so there was a lot of interaction back then, and that we can take that into consideration that we have, in fact, two major kinds of religion, if we want to use the word religion. The word religion we normally refer to as a group of people who are lied to, who are told that they are subservient to a high god or to a king. They cannot resist or rebel. The divine right of kings and other things that show that the religions are used by the powerful, and that the religious leaders also gain their power because they give spiritual power to the government. And then there's the other kind of religion, which is hard to use the word religion for. We can say that these are the spiritual people who do not see governments and coercion and taking things away from one group of people and giving it to another. The wealthy always suppress the poor through religion, and then we can be reborn into the other kind, which is be more spiritual, where we do not see things as scarce, we see things as abundant. Jesus talked about abundant life. This is what the Buddha talked about also, in the sense of let's start having a wholesome outlook. Let's start seeing things abundantly. If we can do that, we can make that change of lineage. We're actually, what we're doing is we're changing our attitude from the attitude of scarcity, the attitude that we've got bosses, the attitude that we've got to work for a living, and change that into the attitude that everything is okay. We've got everything that we need. There's no problems, no worries. Let's just hang out and be friends with one another. This is the real teachings of the Buddha, and that we can see that is actually, it gets suppressed by the other kind of religion, but it springs up occasionally. The one thing that about the teaching of the Buddha is that it actually survived 2,500 years. There was enough nobles from the beginning during the Buddha's time that it was never stamped out. Not the way that Christianity lost Jesus. He was only a figurehead and a replacement for Mithras. And by the way, Mithras is just another word for Isis. So we can see that that old religion, they needed a lot of magic. They wanted to give you magic so that you would believe that they've got the real power. But the reality is that when you join the Buddha's cult, when you become part of his lineage, we don't need that kind of power. The power that we have is the power of knowledge based upon seeing things clearly, looking at the way things are, rather than listening to the authorities and believing what they have to say. It's a completely different world. And I invite each one of you to start changing your attitude from that attitude of scarcity into the attitude of abundance. This is how one is actually reborn, reborn into joy, reborn into pleasure, reborn into abundance, so that we live our lives abundantly. Now, almost all the questions that people have about the teachings of the Buddha are of two kinds. And one of those kinds is that the answer to it is always the answer of don't see things as little, see things as big. Don't see things as unwholesome and rotten, see things as beautiful and joyful and okay. So, one of the questions that we had seen today that we'll talk about in that regard is someone asked about the word whole or wholeness. We can use actually another word for that, and that is holiness, being whole, as opposed to digging a hole. You can say, in fact, that the religions are digging a hole to put you in instead of allowing you to be whole. Now, this word whole actually fits very well into the word that the Buddha used called samadhi. When the mind is whole, when it's unified, when it's of one thing, then the mind is whole, it's samadhi, as opposed to division. And the division or the duality is the bosses, the aristocracy, the money, the gods, and all of that are above us, and the poor ordinary people are below. This is the main duality. Now, within uh, Avanta, I believe, or something grouped about somewhere in Hinduism, they have the idea that the individual person can in fact somehow merge with the Abba, the creation, the big God. Then, in fact, in Buddhism, we have words for this. One of the words is idiopapajayata. And what the word idiopapajayata means actually is with this, there is that, and without this, there is not that, which is the classical definition in all respects of uh, cause and effect, or conditioning and effect. And that this Ittiyapapajayata also has another word in the Pali, which would be Dhammakai, which means the full body of the Dhamma, everything, everywhere. Now, the difference is that this big it, this God, is not a creator, it's a creation. Big difference. It's not a creator, it's a creation. It does not have a personality, it just is. So there is nothing to merge into. The next point is that each individual one of us has been taught by the religions that you are unique, you are individual, you are not with God, but you must get with God, which means that there is a little self. Now, the Hindus have the belief is that the little self merges with the big self. But the Buddha teaches something completely different than that. He says you're already part of the big it. You're already there. You're already a member. You're already a son of God, except that there is no personality God and there's no personality son. We're just part of the big it. And that's part of the realization that everything is abundant because you're already a part of the all, the it, the good old whatever it is, the big, big universe. You're part of that. That's your clan. That's your lineage. That's who you are. You are not a little person anymore. You're part of the big crowd. You're in the right lineage. If that's true, then and we begin to see that, we begin to understand it, then we begin to practice it, and then we begin to perform it, and then we begin to play with it as that's our natural state. If we can get to that point that this is our reality, this is our natural state, then our then questions are mostly irrelevant. In fact, the only kind of questions that we can ask is how do we actually change our attitude from the attitude of scarcity, the attitude of poor little old me, the attitude of the victim who is victimized by all the big stuff, and change that attitude into the attitude of this big it is actually who I am. That actually you are, in a reality, the Son of God. Just like Jesus, he called himself Son of Man, but he also called himself Son of God. The Israelites called themselves children of God, but guess what? Their God was a little God, a tiny God, a Yehovah, a jealous God, a God that didn't want to have any other gods before him. He wanted to be on top of the crowd, except that that's all selfishness. That's all a little mindedness. When we're joining the big group, life is abundant. Everything is there. Anything and everything that you need. All we have to do is to realize that by seeing reality as it is. This is what's real. You're part of the place. You're it. Here you are. You're right wherever you are. The kingdom of God is right there at hand. Wherever you are, you're full of it. You're full of the kingdom of God. So go ahead. I'll take a question now. Go ahead, Seed.
Well, I still remember
I would like
that
to
you.
see your smile, by
I
the
still.
way. I'm glad to see you smiling.
Yeah, I'm smiling. Can you see me?
Yes, I can see you.
Hello. Well, but you say Buddhism is a bullshit too. You know, it's different from Buddha Dhamma, right?
Yeah, but which bullshit are you going to believe? The one that keeps you bound up or the one that's going to free you?
Well, I believe in Buddha. I do Buddha Dhamma more than Buddhism.
Yes, right. The Buddhism is actually has become another religion
Yeah.
with all kinds of magical stuff involved with it. Yes, that's true. Buddhism is a religion. The teachings of the Buddha, though, is liberating.
Hmm.
The teachings of the Buddha is to actually say, come out of the religion. Now, in his day, it was the Brahmins who were religion of the day. But now in Thailand and in Taiwan, religion has become named as Buddhism, but it's just religion because it's not liberating. You've already talked about the other students that are going to be in your class have a little God. They're hurting. They're not happy. They're going around actually sometimes being proud of their dukkha. Oh, look, I'm suffering. Oh, if I suffer enough, something's going to forgive me, and then I'll be happy. Instead of saying, hey, I'm already happy. I'm already there. So that's the difference. People, in fact, mostly those who begin to practice the Dhamma, when they do, they're still coming out of the state of deprivation. They come out, they actually start off with, because they're already in the state of dukkha. And so they say, how can I practice dukkha correctly so that I can come out of dukkha? And the reality is that they are already out of the dukkha until they make it up again. And we keep making up the dukkha out of our ignorance. That's the main point. You could say then that the cause of dukkha is not greed and ill will. The cause of dukkha is the delusion that things are scarce. And if the delusion is that things are scarce, that means then that I need some stuff because things are scarce. So the greed actually comes out of the delusion that you don't have enough. When you come out of that delusion and see things clearly, where's going to be the source of the greed? So any and every time that you have greed is only because you've got the delusion that you don't have enough. You're coming out of that religious place of scarcity, of duality, of little gods who can't help you. Guess what? The little gods can't help you, and the big God, the creation itself, it's too busy having fun to take care of you in your suffering and misery. Because you made the suffering and misery, it's up to you to come out of your suffering and misery. And all you have to do is remember that you don't have to suffer. You can remember, I don't have to make that bad shit up. I can make up some good shit instead. Where did you go? Sheep. There you are, sheep. I see you now.
I just want to say that there's something funny about Christianity. The funny thing is when they think they have to be enough for the God, they already in the dukkha because they think it's not good enough.
Uh-huh. Exactly. So let's look at that in a different kind of perspective, and that is that creation, the big it, the environment that we're in, the air that we breathe, the gravity that holds us to the planet, the solidness, the liquid, our energies, everything is already there. And yet the Christians, they want you to be generous. Why? Because their God needs money. Their God needs money to support the priest who need money. But if your God is creation itself, what are you going to give back to creation? It already owns everything already. So in reality, then, our practice of generosity is to give things to people who are living in scarcity because of their own delusions that have been passed down century by century by century. And if that's the case, then the best generosity, the highest generosity that you can give someone who is trapped in the delusion of stinginess is to give them the gift of the Dhamma, to give them the gift of you can come out of that crap and become free. If you practice, you can too become free. You can become free from your delusion that you are separate from reality. You can come out of the delusion that there are big people who are stepping on me. Those big people are only stepping on you is because you live under the shadow of their footprint. If you escape the shadow of their footprint, they can't step on you. Better to take a hike, go someplace else, get away from all the noise. Someone asked about noise. The best way to deal with noisy, unhappy, little people who are in the delusion that they don't have enough is to not spend time with them while they're noisy. But you can invite them to be quiet long enough to hear the Dhamma so that they can learn to be quiet and happy and comfortable and begin to see they've already got enough. There is no problem. There is no worries. You've already got everything you need. So, if you get into a discussion with these people and they want to cling to their little God or their little belief or their little political party or their little government or whatever that they're clinging to, the best thing to do is to not argue with them. Don't argue because they're clinging to something that's just a little pile of stinky crap. Don't try to convince them because they're already holding a position. The only people that you can share the Dhamma with are those people who already see at least a little bit that all their belief systems have not liberated them from suffering and they're still hurting. In fact, they're creating that hurting by clinging to the unreal, the little stuff. So, if you can find some time when people are willing to listen, then we can teach them. Now, there is an organization, it's not so big and powerful as it was 100 years ago, called the Salvation Army. Now, the Salvation Army, they had a trick, and their trick is that they dealt with the poor of the cities. They would have a band to get people's attention and then invite them to come to eat. The Salvation Army fed their prospects. And after they were full and weren't hungry anymore, only then could they hear the gospel. Except that the gospel was also full of crap. However, they had something going in the sense that you can't teach people big crap or little crap as long as people are too busy being hungry for something else. And so, for this reason, we cannot teach the Dhamma to those who want to argue. Don't argue with them. Don't. I've heard the analogy that it's like teaching a pig to sing. It frustrates the teacher and it annoys the pig. Don't go around annoying people with the Dhamma when they're not ready to hear it. It's only when they're enough satisfied that they'll listen. They have to become a little bit satisfied so you can get them peaceful and quiet, and only then can they hear the Dhamma. And so you've seen actually on Discord, people come on, they learn a little Dhamma, and then somebody will say something really brilliant or beautiful, and they don't like it, they disagree with it, they'll start to argue. And the right thing to do is to not argue with them. Maybe you can get them to cool down, to quiet down, to be peaceful, to be quiet. And so if people are going to be remaining noisy, that if you can't convince them to chill out, to cool off, and to listen, then don't try to teach them the Dhamma. Stay out of noisy environments. Don't listen to the noise. You already know the correct path. You already know that those people, the whole civilization is built around having little gods that are scarce, little governments that don't have things. That if, in fact, if a government was a good government, it would be there to help and to serve people. But all the governments that I know of are there to tax, to get your money. They need money. What kind of government is it that can't support its people? We need money, 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 money in order to keep the government going. Need money to keep the religion going. We need you to do what we tell you to do. But you'll never hear that from the Dhamma. What you hear from the folks who are teaching the Dhamma is come, sit down, take a rest, enjoy your life, be happy. This is the teaching. And as soon as you leave that person and go back into society, society is going to tell you, yap, 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 we don't have enough. You got to pay this, you got to buy that, you got to work hard, you got to do this, that, and the other thing. And so it's better to associate with the wise. It's better to associate with folks who really understand that we've got enough. All right, Sheep, go ahead. I'm listening.
Yes. Since I'm going back to university, I would like some tip and trick to apply Buddha Dhamma on like work and study, or like because I know.
Just
Yeah.
what I said. Don't listen and don't hang out with noisy people who are unhealthy, and dissatisfied. And if you are in their vicinity, you can maintain your Dhamma. Be happy.
Mm.
Okay?
But
Be
if everyone
joyful.
is
Give them
everyone is
joy.
unsatisfied, everyone is unsatisfied.
I know. I've been there. I've been around watching unsatisfied people for 80 years. I know more about dissatisfaction than you do, Bub. I know enough about it now to avoid it completely. Don't hang out with dissatisfied people.
Yeah. Okay.
If you
That's
spend
good
that
good
time
enough.
with those people, get them into at least a little bit of satisfaction so that you can teach them how to have more satisfaction. But don't
Mm-hmm.
argue with them. Ivan wanted to know about arguing. Do you have any questions, Ivan?
Not really. It's just really funny when you see people argue. I learn a lot when I just when I just stay in my satisfaction and just watch the show. You know, it's really, I don't know. There's something very humorous about it. I can't really explain. It's just really humorous. Yeah.
Yes. Just enjoy the show. Just enjoy the reality that they're making up. They are making up a tragedy. You have the choice of making it into a comedy. You have that choice. Don't leave them in a state of tragedy. Either leave them or convert it into a farce. Make it into a joyful state. Ask them little questions like, wow, it sounds like you've decided that it's really bad. Are you sure it's that bad? You can't find any good in your life? Tell me something good. Tell me something that's bountiful. Tell me something that you really have. Get them to refocus from poor me, I don't have this, into, I'm okay, I've got some of that.
Yeah, you don't you don't see this a lot in the therapy and mental health circle. Like people always like want to dig more, you know, like they really try really hard to understand, and like they think they will get something out of it, you know, like some sort of relief. And it's really crazy, but yeah.
Oh, isn't that interesting? People work hard trying to understand something that is so dead simple. It is so simple to see. I don't have to be in a mental state of things are not good enough. I can change it into the mental state that everything is okay, everything is good enough. I can wake up. I am wake up. So become woke, even though the Republicans hate woke people. You know why they hate woke people? Because they can't control them. So that's the whole teaching. We use that word a lot. Wake up. In fact, you could say that the word Bodh or Bodhi tree or Buddha all mean one thing, and that is to wake up and see reality as it is, including the fact that you're part of it. You're real. And if we can see it in a delicious, happy way, then your life is easy. And if you see it as a distasteful thing, then you're always wanting something better, but you won't let yourself have it. So, Amrit, do you have something to say?
Yeah, Dhammarato, I would like to ask a question about the dissatisfaction and letting go of dissatisfaction. But usually, you teach instead of letting go, we should throw it out. So my question is, when your skill is developing, when you are much more skilled, then throwing out becomes letting go. Is it correct to say?
Yes. There's a big difference between letting go. For instance, the cat can be in your lap and you're not touching it. You let it go. Guess what? The cat's going to sit in your lap. What you have to do instead is grab the cat by the nape of the neck and take him off the lap and put him down. This is what we mean when we the word that is used in English is the word relinquishment. To throw it out, turn it loose in a way that it actually leaves. I've got a little story from a friend. He was a Westerner who was a monk at Wat Suan Mok, and he came up with this analogy. It's gross, but it may be of value because it is gross. Okay. When you pick a booger out of your nose, where is it? When it comes out of the nose, where is it? It's on your
Yeah.
finger, right? But you let it go. Where's the booger? It's clinging to your finger, right? That's the way of our unwholesome thought. It clings. It's sticky. And you have to throw it out, Amrit. You have to remove it. You have to clean. You can't just come into the dirt and say, oh, I'm going to let this dirt go because it's just going to sit there. You actually have to remove those unwholesome thoughts. And the best way to remove them is by completely replacing them. So if you've got a booger on your finger, Christina, what are you going to do?
I've never picked my nose, okay?
Do I
You're gonna
believe that or what?
Yeah. No, you're gonna get rid of it. You're gonna wash your hands. You're gonna get rid of it.
You're going to wash. That's right. You're going to take some soap and water and clean those hands. Or take a tissue and clean the hand. You need that also for the mind. That in fact there's actually a sutta where the Buddha, the senior monks came and says, "We've got a really, really stupid guy here. He can't remember the chants. He doesn't understand anything." And so the Buddha summoned him and gave him a cloth. And he says, "You remember this. In fact, it's a good mantra. As I hold and clean my hands, I clean my mind." And that's the only thing, that was the only Dhamma that he got, was just clean your hands and clean your mind. And he became an arahat because his mind was clean enough that he didn't cling to those boogers of the mind anymore. So that's actually the practice. We have to practice cleaning the mind. That in fact, when people begin, there'll be an unwholesome thought. We clean it out, and guess what? The next thought is going to be another unwholesome thought, and we clean that one too. And what's the next thought? It's going to be an unwholesome thought too. But if we keep cleaning and keep cleaning and keep cleaning, guess what? Begin to see some cleanliness there. Imagine an old table that has been mistreated, but it was always rough. But if you start polishing that table and polishing it and rubbing it and cleaning it over and over and over again, it will begin to shine. In the beginning, it actually needs some rough sandpaper. But as you use rough sandpaper, then you get it down to a certain fineness. Then you get finer sandpaper, and you rub it with fine sandpaper. And then you go to the next level and use a rag and polish it with a rag. This is the way that we can do our minds. So those we have to use the right effort in the beginning to throw out those really heavy duty, hardcore, unwholesome scarcity thoughts. Begin to see your thoughts of scarcity. Begin to see when you have thoughts of, I don't have enough. Or in Sheep's case, I can't pass this test. That's a really dirty, low-class, unwholesome thought. We need to grab that thought and throw it out and replace it with thoughts of, I can learn this. In fact, I like learning this. First we say grossly, I can learn this, and then we begin to polish it up by saying, I like learning this. I'm really good at this. And now we're really polishing it. So a lot of our spiritual progress is coming up to a really strong, powerful, I can do this. I can stand up on my own. I can live my life happily. And I can do that in spite of all of the other people who are still suffering and in misery because they are living in scarcity. And you can begin to live in abundance, wealth. And what is your wealth? Your wealth of happiness, your wealth of knowledge of yourself, that you are, in fact, part of the plan. You are the plan. So, Timo, what do you have to say?
Can you hear me? I think now it's
Yes,
working again.
yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. I found myself in disagreement with most of your etymologies at the beginning of the talk, but I don't have much interest to argue and so on. So when it
Well,
comes
everything
to
I said in
making,
the beginning was just one point, and that is that people think that
I
there's
don't know.
not enough,
Yeah, I know.
including you're
So
thinking there's not enough history lesson. And I don't give a flying rip about history. I'm having too much fun right now.
I know. That's why I want to add just something wholesome that is also made up that you might enjoy. For example, in the history in the story of Abraham, there's another word for God that is
You mean the kid
Shaddai.
killer? I know Abraham, right?
Yeah, there's another word for God that is Shaddai, and actually it probably comes from the word for breast and so on. But in Judaism, they said it comes from the root it's sh and dai, and dai means enough, and sh is the relative particle. So in Judaism, there's the tradition that this name of God literally means the God that is enough.
Spiritual. That's not religion.
Yeah.
That in fact Caiaphas would never say that to the widow who is about to put her widow's mite in the coin box. He'll never say to her, "Oh, the coin box has enough." No, he
Right.
wants her money too.
Right.
And so in all religions you have good stuff, but the big stuff is actually the little stuff. Most of what you'll find in religion is pay to play. And here we're learning how to play, and we don't have to pay. You've heard the statement, no pain, no gain. The reality is that stop your pain and just have some gain. So,
Thank you.
Babon, you have something to say. Thank you, Timo. Babon, you have something to say.
Hi, everybody. Yes, I was just thinking regarding maybe obsessive thoughts when there's a resentment. Obviously, it's not very easy just to throw them away like a piece of paper or a bug.
Sure it is. It's only a thought. A thought of resentment is a thought of resentment. You can throw it away and it'll come back, and you can throw it away again and it'll come back again, and you throw it away again. But every time you throw it out, it gets weaker and weaker. Yeah, it'll come back.
Hey.
Why? Because you've got the habit of being resentful. You're excellent at it. You're well skilled at being resentful. So now can you be well skilled at throwing out resentment? By practicing throwing it out. Can you do that?
Yeah, I can try, but that could mean hundreds of iterations.
Well, instead of saying try, you can say, I'll do it even if it takes 10,000 iterations. In fact, it may take more than 10,000 iterations, but you can do it.
Yeah, that
What
means
about
a
a
lot of
measly
patience.
100 or 200 times? Oh, no, this is going to take longer than that. Are you up to the job? Sure you are.
Yeah, that'll be my challenge.
It's not a challenge, it's a game to play. It's easy. Every time you do it, you can say, yeah, there goes that resentment. When you say that it's hard, that's thinking in the small, in the deprivation, in the scarcity mentality. Start thinking and changing your attitude to the mentality that I can do that. What, a resentment? That's just a little thing.
That's a good point. Okay.
So, Joseph, Grand, do you have something to
Thank you.
say?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you. Okay, I was thinking, when we say I can do something, isn't that like not something I can be sure of too? Like it's not something I know I can do or not, but I would try, wouldn't the wholesome thing to think of I want to try, I'm going to try instead of I can?
Well, when you see that you have that unwholesome thought of, oh, no, I can't come up, that's the time to throw that thought out with the thought, yes, I can. I can do it right now.
Sure.
Just like the resentment, the way that you're looking at it is that you've got a long future ahead of you, a lot of toil, and that you're trapped. You're not trapped. You can play with this. So every time you have an unwholesome thought
Thank
of
you.
I'm not up to this or I can't do that, you say, I caught that one. I'll wreck that one up. I got that one. And start changing your attitude from an attitude of deprivation, of this is hard, of you don't have enough, into the attitude of abundance. And you've got abundant time right now to change. Jose, what do you
Thanks.
think?
Hi. Yeah, I love the answer you gave to Timo, but for me there is one point that always comes back to me regarding abundance. Sometimes it feels like others are exploiting or taking advantage of my abundance.
Right, they're taking advantage and exploiting. Why? Because they've already got the attitude of scarcity. And so they're trying to take something away from you so that they can have it. Guess what? Let them have it. And I don't mean punch them in the face. I mean, let them have it in the sense that you've got abundance. So let them have whatever they want. Let them win the argument. The arguments will be very short when you say, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, but what if it's not of argument? What if it's of presence, of wanting your availability, your time, your thoughts, well, even your wisdom, call it whatever you want. What
Do
does
they
the
really
Buddha
want
say?
your wisdom? If they
I
really
don't
want
know.
your wisdom, you can teach them Dhamma happily.
Uh,
If they're
What
really actually sneakily trying to compete with you, can you see that?
what does the Buddha say regarding setting boundaries?
What boundaries?
Sometimes having to say no, um, um, like it cannot be this. Okay, I'm giving you my time, my generosity, but I will have to say no this time. What does the Buddha
You
say
don't have to
regarding?
say no. You don't have to do that. What you can say instead is, I got to go. See you later. If you say, got to go, see you later, and to say that happily, they'll be happy to say goodbye to you. But if you say no, how are they going to feel?
Yeah, bad.
So don't tell them no. Just tell them everything's okay. Not a problem in the world.
Yeah,
So,
sometimes this feels
people,
like
what? Oh, go ahead, Joseph.
yeah, sometimes this feels like a game or a play to minimize dukkha for everyone, but sometimes it fails spectacularly.
I didn't catch that.
Sometimes this feels like trying to minimize dukkha for everyone.
Um, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You can give people dukkha, but you can't take it away from them. It's a diode.
Thank you. The electronic engineer in me gets that point.
Pardon?
The electronic engineer in me gets that diode thing.
The engineer in me gave it to you. It's a diode. One-way street.
Yeah.
You can give people dukkha only when you've got it, but you cannot take dukkha away from someone. What you can do is to help them settle down, be peaceful, be quiet, help them to listen. And if they're not going to listen, take a hike.
Thank you.
So, people, go for it, man. What do you think?
Yeah. Are you hearing me?
Yes, I hear you.
Yeah. Yeah. Like a diode, light them up. So yeah. Nature is abundant.
Yes, that's the whole point is that it's abundant. Let's come out of our attitude of scarcity. Those who have
Yeah.
dukkha, they get their dukkha because they have the delusion that they don't have enough. They need more.
Yeah. Yeah. One time I was talking about the Dhamma with a friend, and he spoke about avocado tree his uncle had, and it was so abundant that it was a problem. Like one avocado tree could feed the whole family, could feed the neighbors, could feed the animals, the dogs, and it was just one avocado tree. And yeah, nature is very, very abundant.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
very abundant. So abundant you could put up a sign, free avocados.
Yeah,
What is
yeah,
abundant mean?
Uh-huh. Well, that's the
What
Dhamma.
is abundant?
You can't give it away and then be without it. You can keep
yeah,
giving the Dhamma and giving the Dhamma and giving the Dhamma, and you'll never run out.
yeah, yeah. Thank you, Dhammarato, for the talk.
All right. Let's see. Red, what do you think? How about you, Z? Oh, you're up. Okay, Red, go ahead. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a game that the more you do, you can do it at any moment, and looks like the more you do, the better you become, like automatically, just by being in the present moment. But isn't what do you see as any sort of brick walls that the practitioners, the people that practice the Dhamma, could actually face? And how would you see the Sangha just over allowing them to get the insights that they may need for those brick walls?
The joy of the Dhamma. That's part of the beauty of the Dhamma. You don't need anything. Can you remember you don't need anything? You've already got all you need. Your life is abundant already.
Okay,
You don't
so
need more
you
Dhamma
and
instruction.
yeah, you and To in the same boat. He actually discussed about the problem of the spiritual seeker is that he is seeking for something.
Do you know why? Because he's got that built-in attitude that he needs something. He doesn't have enough. He's in scarcity. And when that seeker begins to realize he's already got everything he needs, he stops seeking and starts enjoying his life.
Yeah.
That's the wake up. That's the insight. The main major insight is you've already got what you need. You've got it all. Stop looking for stuff. You're already okay, but you keep remembering that. You can't just have that thought one time and expect all of that scarcity to leave. Oh no, it's deeply and buried. You've been practicing scarcity your whole life. So now it's time to practice having enough. One insight is not enough. You have to have that insight over and over and over and over again.
For all those 20,000 moments you practiced.
Yeah,
all
but
of those.
enjoy the practice. When the practice
Yes.
becomes joyful because you're practicing, you've got enough already.
Yes.
Good one.
Yes.
Okay, Z, do you have something to say?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I had a couple of questions. One was I really related to the person who shared about resentment and the 1,000 iterations. And yeah, if anything, I would say sometimes it takes more than 1,000. It can last days. But I just wanted to check. Would you say this is a good way to deal with it? I could sort of have the wholesome thought. I don't need to think about that right now. And then I could say, isn't this wonderful? And I could look out the window at something beautiful and say, wow, look at that tree. And then I could say, woo, I did it. I got rid of the negative thought. Or would you say there's a better way to deal with negative thoughts?
Diversion is a good practice. But the best part of the diversion tactic is you have to divert from something unwholesome to something wholesome. Most people, when they practice diversion, they practice going from unwholesome to something already unwholesome. We have to divert by saying, isn't that tree beautiful? But if you see that tree is beautiful and you say, wait a minute, it's got a bad leaf on it, that leaf is turning brown. Now you're back into the dukkha again. You can't see the whole tree. You see one bad thing. And now the whole tree is bad. Not only the tree, but the dirt that it's in and the sky and everything just turns to shit. Because that's the attitude of unwholesome. So can you change that whole unwholesome to wholesome? That's the way.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And my other question, if I can ask it, is I've had a couple of friends who are very interested in learning about the Dhamma, and they actively ask questions, even if I'm not talking about it. But they can sometimes become quite negative, so they can start saying, "Oh, but what about the Buddhists who kill people here?" Or they can suddenly become combative and argumentative. How would you best deal with that?
Okay, Buddhists are ordinary people. We're talking about nobles. Nobles don't kill people. We're too busy making friends with them to kill them. They don't have anything that they want. I've already got everything I need. So who is he talking about? They get negative because they see negativity. And they plant that negativity on other people. In fact, they'll plant it on everybody. And so, in fact, you could say, aha, I see you being really negative. What about killing people? Well, I'm not killing people right now. In fact, it might be better if I could kill some of them with my jokes. Killing them softly with my humor. So, yeah, people are going to be negative. They're going to say, well, what about this and what about that? That's what we call whataboutism. It's always unwholesome. So you can either point out, oh, you've gotten really negative all of a sudden. You don't have to argue with them. You don't have to go into what Buddhist are you talking about? Because they'll find some. I mean, Sri Lanka and the Rohingya and Myanmar, you can always find examples of unwholesome people doing unwholesome stuff, wearing a label that you like. And you're not responsible for the Buddhist in Myanmar jacking Rohingya around. They're just being unwholesome. They think that there's not enough land and we need to take their land. So let's practice wholesome. When your friends ask you wholesome questions about wholesome Dhamma, give them wholesome answers about wholesome Dhamma. When they want to accuse and point fingers and say this is bad and all of that kind of stuff, you can say, wait a minute, I got to go to the bathroom. And then, ping, and you're out of here.
Okay, yeah, that's really helpful. Thanks, Dhammarato. I've made a lot of notes.
All right. Giannis, you got something to say?
Yeah, I like the analogy with the diode, especially when we talk about resentment, because like the way I see a resentment is someone in the past turned on a light like dukkha in us, and every time that we see them, we think they're doing it again, but like we're turning it on ourselves and we're like expecting them to turn it off. Like that's how I'm seeing resentment. Like expecting the other person to deal with our dukkha, like to see it. That's
Yeah. Yes, mothers are especially bad about that when they start a sentence, haven't I told you already? Blah, 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 blah.
yeah.
I already told you, blah, 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 blah. Why don't you remember what I told you? And guess what? In that sense, you're the one, by saying that, that's in the scarcity mentality. You think that you can change stuff, you can change unwholesome by one statement. And you can't. You can't even change your own mind with one statement.
Yeah, you need to look at what you are doing now, because yeah, like if you just say statements, positive statements, it doesn't necessarily work. Like you need to see what you're doing. Like you're making the dukkha, you're doing that.
Yes, precisely so. Always in the now. So,
Yeah.
Krishna, you have something to say.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Hello.
Yeah. I do have a question as we were talking about scarcity. And I know people who talk about scarcity a lot, like that they can't get a job and they're gonna lose their home and stuff like that. Well, I get it that it's easy to say that there is no scarcity when you have enough income and stuff like that. But what about people who don't and who can't find a job at the moment?
Well, I know a lot of people who don't have a job and they're happy. So it's not a matter of not having a job. It's a matter of the mentality of scarcity. That you don't have enough, so we need a job. But I can't get a job, so that means that I'm still in scarcity.
It's about whether you're in scarcity. Well, you're not in scarcity at the moment because you
Right.
still
Well,
have a
that's the
house.
only moment you've got. The only time you have is right now. And you can feel abundant even when the banker is there to take the house. Wow, I'm really glad you're here. I don't need that big place. It's been a source of misery for years. You can have the damn thing.
Yeah.
Home ownership is really, really jacked up, very high. But guess what? All of the residents of all of the Watts in Thailand, nobody owns the place. Those who do are in suffering, and those who don't are just guests. So learn to be a guest, a happy guest, a welcome guest at wherever you are, rather than an owner. Owners have the mentality of, I need to own because I am scarce. And if you have the
All
state
right.
of abundance, then you can go get another place. Here, come stay on my porch. You can stay here. Well, I'll have to check that with Mikey. Mikey, do we have room for Kirshni?
Yeah, right alongside the cats.
Hey, thanks for the offer. I'll let you know if I need it.
All right, Mr. Bean, what do you have to say?
Can't hear you. Oh yeah, he's not. Maybe he's not here.
Yeah, he's having a happy dance right now, I suppose. No problems.
His mic
So,
doesn't work. He says, "Thanks, Dhammarato. Satisfied here and now."
good one. So, does anybody have any last remarks? All right, Mikey, let's take this thing away. Let's put it to sleep. Enough already.
Yeah, let's get some rest. Take it easy. Thanks, friends, for being here today. Yeah, continue to make friends here in the Sangha. Going to continue encourage you all to have one-on-one calls with each other. And it doesn't have to be with the same person every week. Call Mr. Ben one week, call Ivan another week, call Christina the week after that. Yeah. In fact, here's a goal for you. Yeah. In fact, the only goal that the Buddha pointed to was noble friendship as the goal. Yeah. So maybe we can have the goal of let's do one-on-one call a week with one another. Yeah. Let's see if you can do that. It's nice to make friends, nice to keep our mind in the Dhamma. It's a great reminder. It keeps us happy. Doesn't matter where you are in your practice. You can see Dhammarato gets great joy out of doing the calls as well. Otherwise, he wouldn't do them. So yeah, thank you, friends, very much for being here. If you're watching this online, yeah, feel free to join us here on the Dhamma Friends Discord, where we have lots of wholesome fun. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you all. We'll see you again.
Thank you, Dhammarato.
Thank you, Dhammarato.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
you.
Namaste.